So another day is another opportunity to improve yourself. So today we are going to be continuing with reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And today we are on book 2. And the purpose for this series of videos is for me to improve my speaking ability. I want to be able to stop stuttering so much, and I want to be able to become a clearer speaker. And the only way to do it, I find, is to just read out loud, and to practice. So that's why I am doing these videos right now. Alright, without further ado, let's start the timer. Today we are going to be doing 20 minutes. And let's go. Written among the Quandi on the River Grand. Say to yourself first thing in the morning, today I shall meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, aggressive, treacherous, malicious, unsocial. All this has afflicted them through their ignorance of true good and evil. But I have seen that the nature of good is what is right, and the nature of evil is what is wrong. And I have reflected that the nature of the offender himself is akin to my own, not a kinship of blood or seed, but a sharing in the same mind, the same fragment of divinity. Therefore I cannot be harmed by any of them, as none will infect me with their wrong. Nor can I be angry with my kinsman or hate him. We're born for cooperation, like feet and hands, like eyelids, like the rows of upper and lower teeth. So to work in opposition to one another is against nature, and anger or rejection is opposition. Whatever it is, this being of mine is made up of flesh, breath, and directing mind. Now, the flesh you should disdain, bones, blood, a mere fabric, a network of nerves, veins, arteries. Consider too what breath is, wind, and not even a constant, but all the time being disgorged and sucked in again. That leaves the third part, the directing mind. Quit your books, no more hankering. This is not your gift. No, think like this, as if you were on the point of death. You are old. Don't then let this directing mind of yours be enslaved any longer. No more jerking to the strings of selfish impulse. No more disquiet at your present or suspicion of your future fate. The works of God are full of providence. The works of fortune are not dependent of nature, and the spinning and weaving together of the threads governed by providence. All things flow from that world, and further factors are necessity, and the benefit of the whole universe, of which you are a part. Now every part of nature benefits from that which is brought by the nature of the whole, and all which preserves that nature, and the order of the universe is preserved equally by the changes in the elements and the changes in their compounds. Let this be enough for you and your constant doctrine, and give up your thirst for books, so that you do not die a grouch, but in true grace and heartfelt gratitude to the gods. Remember how long you have been putting this off. How many times have you been given a period of grace by the gods and not used it? It is high time now for you to understand the universe, and which you are a part, and the governor of that universe, of whom you constitute an emanation, and that there is a limit circumscribed to your time. If you do not use it to clear away your clouds, it will be gone, and you will be gone, and the opportunity will not return. Every hour of the day, give vigorous attention, as a Roman and as a man, to the performance of the task in hand with precise analysis, with unaffected dignity, with human sympathy, with dispassionate justice, and to vacating your mind from all its other thoughts. And you will achieve this vacation if you perform each action as if it were the last of your life, freed, that is, from all lack of aim, from all passion-led deviation from the ordinance of reason, from pretense, from love of self, from dissatisfaction with what fate has dealt you. You see how few things a man needs to master for the settled flow of God-fearing life, of a God-fearing life. The gods themselves ask nothing more of one who keeps these observance. The gods themselves ask nothing more of one who keep these observances. Self-harm, my soul. You are doing self-harm, and you will no more opportunity for self-respect. Life for each of us is a mere moment, and this life of yours is nearly over, while you still show yourself no honor, but let your own welfare depend on other people's soul. Do externals tend to distract you? Do externals tend to distract you? Then give yourself the space to learn some further good lesson, and stop your wandering. That done, you must guard against the other sort of drift, and those who are dead to life, and have no aim for the direction of every impulse, and more widely, every thought, are drivellers in deed as well as word. Failure to read what is happening in another's soul is not easily seen as a cause of unhappiness, but those who fail to attend to the motions of their own soul are necessarily unhappy. Failure to read. Failure to read what is happening in another's soul is not easily seen as cause of unhappiness, but those who fail to attend to the motions of their own soul are necessarily unhappy. But those who fail to attend to the motions of their souls are necessarily unhappy. Always remember these things. What the nature of the whole is, what my own nature is, and the relation of this nature to that. What kind of part it is of what kind of part it is of what kind of whole. And there is no one who can prevent you keeping all that you say, and do in accordance with that nature of which you are a part. In this comparative ranking of sins, applying philosophy to the common man's distinctions. Theophrastus. Theophrastus says that offenses of lust are graver than those of anger, because it is clearly some sort of pain and involuntary spasm which drives the angry man to abandon reason, whereas the lust-led offender has given in to pleasure and seems somehow more abandoned and less manly in his wrongdoing. Rightly then, and like a true philosopher, Theophrastus said that greater censure attaches to an offense committed under the influence of pleasure than to one under the influence of pain, and in general, the one is more like an injured party, forced to anger by the pain of provocation, whereas the other is his own source of the impulse to do wrong, driven to what he does by lust. You may leave this life any moment. Have this possibility in your mind, and in all you do or say or think. Now departure from the world of men is nothing to fear. If gods exist, because they would not involve you in any harm. If they do not exist, or if they have no care for humankind, then what is life to me in a world devoid of gods or devoid of providence? But they do exist, and they do care for mankind, and they have put it absolutely in man's power to avoid falling into the true kinds of harm. If there were anything harmful in the rest of experience, they would have provided for that too, to make it in everyone's power to avoid falling into it. And if something cannot make a human being worse, how could it make his life a worse life? The nature of the whole would not have been blind to this, either through ignorance or with knowledge unaccompanied by the power to prevent and put right, nor would it have made so great an error, through lack of power or skill, as to have good and bad faith, and bad falling indiscriminately on good and bad people alike, yes, death and life, fame and ignominy. I'm not sure how to pronounce that word. Ignominy. So I was correct. Ignominy. And yes, life and death, fame and ignominy, pain and pleasure, wealth and poverty, all these come to good and bad alike, but they are not in themselves right or wrong, neither then are they inherently good or evil. How all things quickly vanish, our bodies themselves lost in the physical world. The memories of them lost in time. The nature of all objects of the senses, especially those which allure us with pleasure, frighten us with pain, or enjoy the applause of vanity. How cheap they are, how contemptible, shoddy, perishable, and dead. These are matters for our intellectual faculty to consider. And further considerations. What are they? These people whose judgments and voices confer or deny esteem. What is death? Someone looking at death per se, and applying the analytical power of his mind to divest death of its associated images, will conclude then that it is nothing more than a function of nature. And if anyone is frightened of a function of nature, he is a mere child, and death is not the only function of nature, but also to her benefit. Further, how does man touch God? With what part of his being, and when that part of him is in what sort of disposition? Further, how does man touch God? With what part of his being, and when that part of him is in what sort of disposition? Nothing is more miserable than one who is always out and about, running around everything in circles. And in Pindar's words, delving deep in the bowels of the earth, and looking for signs and symptoms to divine his neighbor's mind. He does not realize that it is sufficient to concentrate solely on the divinity within himself, and to give true service. That service is to keep it uncontaminated by passion, triviality, or discontent at what is dealt by gods or men. What comes from the gods demands reverence for their goodness. What comes from men is welcome for our kin. What comes from men is welcome for our kinship. What comes from men is welcome for our kinship's sake. Kinship's sake. What comes from men is welcome for our kinship's sake. Well, it's really hard. What comes from men is welcome for our kinship's sake. What comes from men is welcome for our kinship's sake, but sometimes pitiable also, in a way because of their ignorance of good and evil, and this is no less a disability than that which removes the distinction of light and dark. Even if you were destined to live 3,000 years, or 10 times that long, nevertheless remember that no one loses any life other than the one he lives, or lives any life other than the one he loses. I need to repeat this. Holy moly, this is amazing. Marcus Aurelius, he is the GOAT. Even if you are destined to live 3,000 years, or 10 times that long, nevertheless remember that no one loses any life other than the one he lives, or lives any life other than the one he loses. It follows that the longest and the shortest lives are brought to the same state. The present moment is equal for all, so what is passing is equal also. The loss, therefore, turns out to be the merest fragment of time. No one can lose either the past or the future. How could anyone be deprived of what he does not possess? This is insane. I've read this book before, but rereading this is another experience. And I have not read it out loud before, so perhaps this is the problem, as in I feel like reading the book out loud, it gives you a deeper understanding of the text. All is as thinking makes it so. The retort made to Monimus the cynic is clear thought, but clear too is the value of his saying. Value of his saying. If one takes the kernel of it as far as it is true. Alrighty, we are going to be returning to this amazing work of philosophy tomorrow. Alright, peace.